would come out really grainy and not good. So
Okay, I think we are live. Not yet, or maybe yes. Here we are. Okay, welcome to Root Source and the River Winds. I'm very happy to, I'm Gidon Ariel, of course, of Root Source, and I'm very happy to welcome my very good friends, Laralyn and Joseph RiverWind. That is Chief Joseph and Dr. Laralyn Witherwind. RiverWind. Nice to see you. Where are you? Where are we meeting you tonight at?
we
Where
are
are you?
in East Tennessee.
In our home.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome
Tennessee.
to our home.
Mabrika, welcome. Yes.
Madriga. And I am in Hebron in my home. This is the it's a photo that I'm using as a background, but that is actually the view from my window.
Lovely.
Oh, wow.
That is the Judean desert. Right behind over here, or something like that, is the Dead Sea and the Jordan River, and behind that it's a picture that I took on a hazy day. But behind that are the mountains of Moab and Ammon, however that's pronounced in English, the state of Jordan, the kingdom of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, and that's my backyard.
Well, with seeing Israel back there, you are making us homesick.
We love the time
I don't need to do that, but I do it anyway. Yes, so really, I like making these conversations just to meet people, and really, my audience would be very nice. Love to meet the two of you.
And we are grateful to you also, because the people who, our audience, loves and appreciates the sage counsel and wisdom that come from the Jewish people's amazing and appropriate perspective of Scripture.
Yeah, yes. I believe that we are living in a times when your people's holy men, the prophets, said that the Gentiles would take hold of the seat of the Jewish people and say, "Teach us, for the Creator is with you." And you're literally the root source of everything that is beautiful and wonderful in this world. And of course, I think that these are the times that we're living in. Even though there's so much darkness in the world, your people are definitely a light to the world. And that's how I think we think of ourselves, as we're the ones out there grabbing hold of your seat and saying, teach us, show us. Because these sacred words came from your people. It is what it is.
They came from the one God of the entire world, the entire universe, and he chose to choose us to be the ones to teach the entire world. And I'm trying my best to not disappoint him.
Toda raba.
Thank you. So so I was saying that I do record these conversations with numerous people. I'm sure that some of the people that we've already had, you're friends with also. But I decided to record this tonight or this morning, whatever time it is by you, because Laralyn and I had been going back and forth about studying a passage.
In a good way.
I beg your pardon?
In a good way.
Of course. We were studying a passage in the scripture, and I was impressed by your questions, and I said this would be wonderful to start all over when other people might be able to benefit from what we were talking about as well. Okay, so we've got the topic tonight, or at least we've got the stage set. So what were we? I've already forgotten what we were talking about. So help me out here.
About Joseph.
We were actually
Ani Yosef Achichem.
Actually, it's during the portion that talks a lot about Joseph, but right there, thrown in the middle, in such a, to me, what would seem like a strange place, is the story about Yehuda and Tamar. And I've puzzled about why his story, and it's not just like something, oh, cut scene here and let's see what's happening with Judah at this moment. It actually cuts scene and goes and tells a story that's years long. So my first question that I didn't even ask you, I felt like maybe I got some revelation from creator about why this story was injected into it. And it had, I thought it was fascinating that it's just right there in the middle of the story. But interestingly enough, what happens right after this, you see the story of needing an heir and not having conceived with Tamar, and then you see what would appear, or the intention was to have sexual sin in the midst of this. And then when it finishes the story of Judah and Tamar, it goes into Joseph at Potiphar's house and being accused by his master's wife of rape, basically.
Yes.
And so you still see a common theme in there of sexual desire, inappropriateness, and righteousness sewn into both of those scenarios. And so
beautiful point. Beautiful point.
So it's, to me, I think that it's trying to stitch together, creators trying to stitch together a common theme, that this is something that every man and woman has to face, hopefully prior to what would be a breakthrough in your life. And that's what we see happening with Joseph, is that after he gets tested, really, he's being tested. Slavery was a sin. Slavery had consequences, that you became basically the property of somebody else, which included a lot of times sexual domination and sex work. And unfortunately, and what was being asked of him by his master's wife was that. And so Joseph breaks with the norm and says, I may be a slave, but I've got standards, and I'm not going to break those, and I'm not going to turn against my master and indulge you in this. And so
not only my master, but to God as well, if I remember
exactly,
correctly.
both of his masters. And so he's punished for it wrongly, but in the end, what happens is he's blessed beyond his wildest expectations or
dreams.
Yes,
beyond his dreams, literally.
because it wasn't just his brothers and sisters that bowed down to him; it was an entire nation, and nations came to him, and they bowed down. So, but before that, he had to be tested in this area that is every man's battle. But that wasn't even my question when I wrote you.
I know, but I'd like to respond to that anyway, just a little bit off the top of my head when I'm hearing what you're saying. Numerous characters in the Bible have been given a maybe not a nickname, but an additional descriptor in Jewish tradition. Specifically, there are more, but there are certainly at least 7 who have a place in their fame. Obviously, they're quite famous, but in the holiday of Sukkot, of Tabernacles, it's a 8-day long holiday, but there's really only 7 days of Sukkot, and then the last day is Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day of Holy Assembly or something like that, trying like that.
My favorite day of the year.
And but there is something called Ushpizin, which is guests. It means guests, and I don't remember. I haven't done a university level research study into it recently, off the top of my head to remember. But the concept of Ushpizin is that every night we invite one of these 7 heroes of the Bible. And what I'm bringing up is that each one of them has a name in the Bible, but traditionally they have a name and a descriptor. So Abraham is Avraham Avinu, our father Abraham. Yitzchak, I think, is also Yitzchak Avinu. Isaac, our father, the three fathers, and Yaakov Avinu also, the three of them. So those are three. Then comes Moshe, Moses, Rabbeinu, our teacher or our rabbi. That is what he is considered. Aaron is Aaron a Kohen, Aaron the priest. Then comes how much do we have? That makes 4. That makes 5, right? Then we got 2 more. One of them, the last one, is David. His descriptor is Hamelech or Melech Israel, King David. And then we're left with Joseph, interestingly. And his descriptor that he is known as is Yosef HaTzadik.
Oh, wow.
Joseph, the righteous one. And again, I bet there are other reasons, but I would think that one of the main reasons that he is called Yosef HaTzadik is because of this story that you mentioned now, how he was able to withstand that test of sexual impropriety, and he withstood it. So that is just something that everybody knows. Another thing that I wanted to, I think, respond to what you said about how it was very interesting about how both Judah and Joseph were given a test of sexual impropriety. Joseph passed the test, but Judah didn't. It seems that he didn't pass the test. And
Or
Judah,
did he?
he didn't. He saw who he thought was a prostitute, and he said, "Let's go." And he, in fact, ultimately consummated that relationship. Again, he was thinking that he seems to have been thinking that it was a prostitute. And ultimately, out of that union came none other than King David.
Yeah.
And so that is very interesting how God decided both through a sin and through a withstanding, the ability to withstand a sin, like Joseph did. Both of them, as far as God is concerned, is a way to run the world and the way to move forward the history of the world as God directs it. So that's just a very interesting thing to think about a little bit more, but that's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating that I was trying to figure out if there is something in the Jewish Bible that captures this thought, like there is in the Brit Hadashah. There's a prayer that says, "Lead us not into temptation," and that's
not just a prayer. That is the prayer, isn't it? That's part of the Lord's Prayer.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And it reminded me of this because in what was Judah's moment or time of weakness, he passed by somebody and it just he couldn't resist.
Yeah.
But yet Creator allowed, he allowed, who knows, maybe even directed Tamar to do this.
Yes, I mentioned that word that he directed it, and I am daring to say that he in fact directed it.
I think that's a pretty good guess.
Especially how it plays out.
Exactly. Whatever happened, he gave it his blessing because she conceived. And so when you look at the fact that at his moment of weakness, even the Lord was somehow able to take what was by all rights lustful and bad, and somehow able to create an act of righteousness out of that is just mind-boggling. That we as humans cannot, even in our fallen sinful nature, he is still able somehow to make things good. And to me, that's just such an amazing, mind-boggling way that Creator could be gracious and kind and exhibit chen and chesed, favor and loving kindness, that he would that he'd say, listen, this is a moment of weakness. Let's make it into an act of righteousness, because Torah says that she is supposed to have an heir and she doesn't. So it's pretty amazing, just this story that may be very misunderstood by Westerners unfamiliar with the Torah, that tells that if a woman becomes a widow childless, that it's beholden upon the family to make an heir for her in a time period where intravenous, or, I'm sorry, in vitro fertilization was not possible.
And he never had relations with her again after that.
Specifically, that's mentioned, yes. Yeah, that's amazing. And interestingly enough, if I can really jump a little bit deeper over here, both of our religions, the Christian religion and the Jewish religion, recognize that people sin and that God is able to do things through sinners.
Yes.
The way I understand it, Christians understand that is through Jesus. In other words, Jesus accepting on the sins of people who believe in him enables those people to continue with their lives.
Accepting as in like taking that upon himself to bear the punishment for, not condoning, right?
I certainly wasn't thinking condoning. It wasn't like that.
Right.
But Jesus certainly fits in there somewhere. For the Jewish people whose faith does not include Jesus, it's the concept of tshuva, which means repentance. And that is something that we saw specifically in Judah's case, where he specifically says, Tzadka mimeni. I have it open over here. Let me try to find the verse. 1 second. Yeah.
Which was also the same message that he gave, which was to repent and pointed people to the Creator.
Yeah,
for that.
Teshuva is still supposed to be a part of that mix, although
It should be.
It seems like it's oftentimes lacking.
I will just also mention that Judah's great grandson, King David, also sinned in sexual impropriety and also did tshuva, also repented. And he is known, again, I can look it up to try to quote it exactly, but I think that I could get it pretty much without that. And that is, we are very grateful for David because he raised a burnt offering is the phrase that it's used. But really what it means is that he created, he showed the way for tshuva. That the fact that King David could do tshuva, so then any of us can do the same kind of tshuva, something like that.
Was that when the sword stopped at the threshing floor of Aram?
I don't think so.
That was a different one.
That was for him.
That was a different
repentance.
repentance. Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
That was for him taking a census without.
But that's not. But that is not the sin.
That's
not the sin that I'm thinking of.
Right.
I'm thinking exactly. I'm thinking the son of Bathsheba. That afterwards, Nathan, the prophet, came to him and said that you are that man, very famous.
You're that guy.
You're the guy.
Here we are.
You're the one in the story.
Here we are talking about all the Here we are talking about all the R-rated stories in the Bible.
Right? This is an R-rated midrash.
Right. It is known that the Jewish children in elementary school, when they study the book of Genesis, which is usually, I think that's what they study that when they start studying the Bible, and they get up to this chapter, then the teacher says, okay, we're going to skip this chapter or something. A little bit too
Yeah, there's
hard
not
to...
a really good way to make that into a rated G version or even PG.
Right.
You're reminding me now. This is something I don't have such a good memory for such a long time ago. I don't remember which grade it was in, but my teacher was teaching about circumcision.
Oh, ouch.
And or maybe somebody asked, "What's circumcision?" And he said, "Well, we just cut off a little bit of this skin over here on your hand." I don't remember when I learned the truth, but I said, very interesting. I looked at my hand. I don't see any scar. I don't... But anyway, I'm not a teacher of first or second graders. I probably have some teachers in my community like that. Maybe I'll ask them how they deal with this kind of stuff. But in any case, ultimately the Bible is all full of this stuff, and I think that is what is the fascination. Why the Bible is so gripping, because it doesn't whitewash anything. Even the heroes of the Bible, as opposed to the heroes of other nations' myths, like the Greeks and the Romans and stuff like that, they're like demigods. And as far as the Jewish Bible is concerned, there's nobody's perfect.
They're all broken people.
Exactly. I think that really helps us to feel better about ourselves, because wow, if they made these sins, so then I can manage also. God still loves me, and that is what I want. So I wanted to bring up, you mentioned about lead us not into temptation, which is part of the Lord's Prayer, which is mentioned somewhere in the New Testament. But I will tell you, the Jewish people has more than just one Lord's Prayer.
Yes.
We have a whole prayer book over here. This is just daily prayers.
And the whole book of Tehillim.
Yeah.
And all the book of Tehillim, exactly. So of Psalms, I will just read you what came into mind when you said, lead us not into temptation. I will read you, I'm not sure what the source of this is, but obviously the source is in the Siddur, in the liturgy of the daily prayer book. And when I say daily, I mean every single day. Blessed art thou, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, who basically wakes me up, takes off sleep from my eyes, and may it be thy will, O Lord, our God, and the God of our fathers, that you will make us used to your Torah. May you adhere us to your commandments, and bring us not to sin or to any kind of different word for sin. There are different words for sin over here, and not into the hands of a test of temptation.
Wow.
And not really, it's the words here are into the hands, but that colloquially that's not the right word. It means don't bring us to bizayon, which means being totally embarrassed because we did something so terrible. And may the evil inclination not rule over us. So you had a few lines of this blessing, of this prayer that talks exactly about what you're talking. I'll already continue off over here and allow us or distance us from evil an evil man or evil people, from a bad friend. It's good to have a friend, but if a friend is a bad influence, I guess that's what it means. And adhere us and stick us to our good inclination and our good deeds, and force our inclination to enslave ourselves towards you. That's not the best way of translating it, but it means we want to be your servant.
Mm-hmm.
And give us this day and every day with grace and loving kindness, chen v'chesed and rachamim, in your eyes. In other words, may we be received in graciousness by you and in the eyes of all those who see us. In other words, we want to be good in your eyes, God, but we want to be good in the people who see us eyes. It's one thing to say, well, God loves me, I don't care about anybody else. No, it's important. And I don't know if it says so in the Bible somewhere, but we repeat it in the prayer also to that we say in the grace after meals. May we find favor and good mind or good brain or something like that in the eyes of God and man. So may we find the eyes of God and all those who see us. V'tigmalenu chasadim tovim, and please give us or bestow upon us good loving kindnesses or something like that.
Is that the Modeh Ani?
Pardon me?
Is that the Modeh Ani?
No, that is the end of the morning blessings.
Okay.
And that blessing ends, blessed art thou, O Lord, who bestows good loving kindnesses upon his nation Israel. And you're going through that. Finally, after going through towards the end, I realized that I had given a teaching series about the Jewish prayer, about the Jewish book of prayer. So I'm going to let me take a moment now and try to find this on Root Source, that prayer, and I will show you. And I'm not going to play it right now, but
well, it sounds to me like Judah prayed that prayer that morning.
Could be. This is gonna take forever. 1 second. There we go. Pray like a Jew is the source. Let me share my screen here for a second. There it is. root-source.com is my website, /series/pray like a Jew. Chances are, if you search for Pray Like a Jew, you'll find it also over here. And this series includes 19 courses. Woo!
Wow.
Wow.
And I didn't even finish it. Here, morning blessings. That's the course. I clicked on it. Give it a minute. Here's how we start it. And morning goes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 second. Maybe this is it. Let this, I hope it works. It's been a while since I've been here. It's trying to load. I wonder if it's not going to load, which is just as fun. Yeah, there you go. There it is.
Beautiful.
Cleave us to your commandments. Bring us not to sin, iniquity, or transgression. In order to give this lesson, I made sure to look into a thesaurus, not to a test or temptation. I bet and not to embarrassment. So there you go. A morning lesson, blessing 6 is that lesson. So I'll send that to you if you feel like looking over it.
I would
Oh,
love
wow,
to look
yeah.
at that. Thank you.
Of course, all of Root Source's lessons are free now, so you'll be able to access it like that. Well. So we've learned a little bit about lead us not in temptation in the Christian tradition, a tiny bit, in the Jewish tradition, a little bit. We learned a little bit about Judah and Joseph.
Well,
we
and
didn't
even
what
the
we wanted
Christian
to talk
tradition is
about.
just getting it from the Jewish tradition.
Right, right.
Well, I didn't hear what you said.
I said the Christian tradition is just getting it from the Jewish tradition.
No
Mhm.
question about it.
This is a particularly special Torah parsha to us, not just because my husband's name is Joseph, and Joseph is the main focus of the parsha,
I'm horrible with numbers, though, so I'm waiting to live up to my name.
but
Horrible numbers.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it is. I mean,
You-
if it's
you-
a number, it's probably going to be wrong if it comes from him. Bless his heart. He knows it. We don't know what's wrong.
But at least my name is just that I will add. I don't have to multiply or do fractions or
You're
anything.
binding.
Sorry, no. Joseph had to multiply also.
No square roots.
Like fish, he had
Just
to
deep roots.
So, but it's beautiful. This whole section of scripture and the next, the Torah Parsha Miketz, you know, our organization, our life purpose right now is to be a blessing, and not just right now, to be a blessing and to help the Jewish people and Christians.
Yes.
And
We've set Shiva with your people for a year since October 7th, and just traveled to different communities and organizations like the Jewish Federation, the IAC stands with us, just to let your people know that you're not alone, and that there are First Nations, also indigenous people who stand with your people and are praying for your people. And it's been a beautiful thing.
do you remember, of course I know you remember, the amazing book that you put out that you were so gracious to include us in, the Bridge Builders, top Christian Jewish bridge builders. And in that chapter, the interview was about how we were saying hard times are coming for Christians and Jews. And
Really?
yes, the year after the Lord told us that, COVID hit. And then 5 years after that, October 7th happened.
Just give me a second. I'm going to get a copy of that. I usually have one over here, but I don't know why not.
Okay.
Sorry, your forehead is
I know.
super shining with the sun.
I know. Here.
Maybe I can bring this in a little bit more.
Here, 1 second.
There we
This
go.
is-
This is the
Snuggle
book
up.
you're talking about, of course.
Yes.
Yes. And we, in that book, it chronicles our prediction that Creator had given us, that hard times would be coming, and here we see that the past year, a year plus, has been the hardest time that the Jewish people have had in this generation. And I dare say maybe
And
even the
increasing.
generation before as
Yeah.
well, all the way back to the Holocaust.
Yes.
And
We've
I
been,
wish that it was over.
yeah.
But the fact is that I know that it's not.
Yes.
And so when we look at the story of Joseph and how he was called to be a conduit
Of preparation.
from Creator, from the spirit world to mankind, to say, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but stuff is coming down and you're not going to like it.
Yeah.
And we need to prepare. And that's basically what we've been doing for the past 6 years.
Wow.
And I think we probably have, I don't really like to be a time setter and all that. I do so with a little bit of trepidation, but I don't think we have more than a year, a little more than a year. to before we enter into the 7 years of fat. And then we'll have the 7 years of lean. And it's not that I'm putting it out there or speaking it into existence. It's just that these are the things that when Creator gives a word, if you don't speak it, then we would be remiss.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband has an amazing gift to be able to hear very distinctly in the spirit world. The veil is very thin over his ears. And a lot of times he receives visions and I get interpretations. And so.
And everything that's happening is also, not just in biblical prophecies, but also in First Nations and Indigenous prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
We have a term that's when the fires come. And it's specifically talking about like the end of a cycle where there's a renewal of the earth. There's a purification of the earth. And we have stories that Creator purified the earth with water. That's from our flood stories. But we believe in the indigenous traditions that we are entering into that time of when the fires will come. Because we have our own signs and wonders and prophecies that are being fulfilled here on this land, like the birthing of the white buffalo calf. And these are things that we believe Creator gave many different tribes, these things that align with what your people have written as far as quote unquote end time prophecies. And we understand the cycles of things, just like we kept the 13 moon cycle for the whole year. And we know that there's these cycles of 7 that are taking place, which also aligns with a time of plenty and a time of not plenty.
My people actually had a Shemitah year. The 7th year was sacred. And
in their tradition.
In our religious tradition.
The Cherokee tradition.
We had a feast of first fruits. We had an ark that we carried into battle. We had cities of refuge.
Is there some sort of a book that describes these and how they compare to the Jewish religion?
I will be writing a book, and I have sources that I will name. I've studied the feasts for 2 decades, and find it fascinating that there's so much in conjunction with what my people used to practice before Christian missionaries came and made us stop.
And I was going to say, there's also some recent documentation of your ancestors that really have cemented some of the things of the connection, the Hebraic connection. There's places here.
Even the carrying the high holy name.
Yeah, and there's places here like Pisgah Mountain, Tekoa, where the waterfalls are. So, there's names, Hebrew names of ancient villages here that are still on the maps. You can still look these up on a map today, and you'll see Pisgah Mountain, which is now an overlook. It's a place where you can go. It's a beautiful park. Tekoa Falls, which is right in North Georgia.
Wait a second.
So
these places are named for the ancient names of the indigenous tribes of North America.
My tribe,
yes.
The Cherokee.
Yes, and they were never changed. So these places are still named this today. You can Google it. You can Google Pisgah Forest, North Carolina, Tekoa, Georgia.
I'm sure that that's true. I was just wondering because so many places in the United States are named for biblical places, and we understood that was because the population, the residents of the United States were Bible believing and Bible reading people, so they took names out of the Bible, not only out of the Bible, of course. But you're saying that there are some of these biblical names
pre-Christian missionaries, before missionaries ever came to the tribes.
We also have a syllabary that is each letter is a consonant and a vowel sound together. Almost every one of them. There are a few exceptions.
Okay. There was as far as a Jewish source, Rabbi Manasseh ben Israel. He lived in the 17th century, and he wrote a book. He was a scholar and he was convinced that some of the tribes here were Hebraic in their origins.
Also, James Adair. It's a very difficult book to find out of the flame. The Cherokee government used to publish it, but they have discontinued because they don't want to propagate information that may imply that Cherokees are Jewish.
Yeah, we're talking detailed description. James Adair was an explorer. He was an expert in the Hebrew language and traditions. He wasn't a missionary. And
When
he went, James Adair,
The 1700s.
1700s, and he lived among the tribes when they weren't
For
painted with
decades.
European culture or traditions. So he was literally accepted into the tribes. They let him come to ceremonies, and he wrote down everything that he observed. And some of the things are, like the Choctaw name for God is Abba. And he wrote about a lot of the traditions, the building of the sukkahs during the 7-day harvest festival. When at the end of the 7-day harvest festival, there's a combination of elements
This is Muskogee Creek tradition you're talking about now.
that's myrtle and a lemon and
it's willow, cedar, a lemon, and it's waved. It's waved in 4 directions, and then placed in.
This all comes out from this John Adair book?
No, some of this is just also ceremony that
and
we
personal
attended.
experience. Yeah.
But much
But
of
wait a
what
second,
I'm talking
you said that
about.
it's hard to find a copy of this book because the Cherokee government doesn't like it.
Yes, but you can find it within a larger one of his works that's very attainable. And that's what's the name of his book?
I don't remember
Something
the
of
title.
Native Americans.
History of Native Americans.
History of Native Americans.
If you just Google James Adair,
Adair.
Adair.
He has a large
James.
work that's written
James.
on. Yes. He has a larger work that's written on multiple different tribes, and within that work is a smaller book, is a book that was later taken out and published on its own by the Cherokee. And that book is the one that you can't find in print very often. I've seen it for sale for like $4,000.
And then sometimes you could find it for $30.
Right.
Sometimes for $30
on
on the
Amazon,
reservation.
$5,000.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
$5,000.
But
But you can buy the larger work that includes all of them for much less expensive.
Yeah. Sometimes you can find it on the reservation for $20 or $30, but it's very, very rare. But it really goes into the details. James Adair knew a lot of the Hebraic traditions. And he just goes into details of the comparisons between the two tribes. It's a fascinating work. And also a lot of his work and research is still sitting in an archive in a library and has never been published.
So I'm wondering who holds the copyright to this kind of stuff, and if it can't be published.
We've
I don't know.
wondered that too. If you're a copyright attorney out there, you might want to contact us.
Yeah,
We
because
would love to see that book put into print.
Yeah.
You're saying the other book is the history of American Indians, right?
Something like that.
There's history of the American Indians.
That's it. So the one we're talking about, Out of the Flame, which goes into detail with the Cherokee traditions, is in that larger volume. So you don't have to pay the outrageous amount. Yeah, $18, $19 you can pay and get the Out of the Flame portion.
So I see that this history of American Indians has a fully annotated edition, and that's for $50, $42. But on Amazon, you can also get, I guess, the annotated version, published in 1775 in London and printed in the US in 1930 for $430, which probably means that it's not available anyway.
Joseph's pulled up a source right here that has it for $18.99
on Amazon for $18.95, and it's not annotated.
Interesting.
We've definitely traveled far from our
Oh yeah.
Torah Parsha today, haven't
Yep.
we?
I'm going to send you the link to
I would
it.
also like to tell you that the history of the American Indians on all 500 or so pages appears for free on archive.org.
Nice.
There you go.
Score.
There you go.
So
That's the best way to read it.
Pardon me?
That's the best way to read it for free.
Yeah, it always is. This
Yeah,
was like
and
1700s or something like this. 1775.
that's what you want to see. It's his original work, his original eyewitness accounts of what he experienced pre-missionary contact with all these tribes.
Absolutely fascinating.
And there are other ethnologists who have documented even more than what you find in his writings. And
such I can't remember his name now, but he wrote an account of when I think it was, I can't remember which explorer it was, down in South America, and they landed, they made contact with the tribe, they tried to communicate with one another, and the people from the tribe went and found the oldest living person in the tribe and brought him up to the explorers, and he recited the Shema in Hebrew. I can send you that source too. That's documented.
Listen, we've been talking now for a good long time, and I suggest that we meet again, and maybe the next time we meet, we will be able to talk about what we wanted to talk about. But in case we don't, I'm not putting any money down on either of those. Then we can meet again, and I think this is absolutely fascinating, and I'm looking forward to presenting it and featuring it in next week's newsletter, which will be on Tuesday, I hope, and hopefully we'll meet more and more.
Sounds good.
So yeah, maybe we could meet on one of the next Torah Parsha, because it still is about Joseph, and then we can save the Cherokee and Jewish connection until after the book is ready.
We can do that.
We
can
sounds good.
talk about the Parsha whenever you want. Whatever you want.
Thank you.
I always go Ringo. I always am happy to talk about whatever people want to talk about.
I do want to say the reason I had what we were looking at was, wow, the things that Judah gave away, such symbols of authority, possibly even protection, things that were identifiable. That was a lot of trust to place in a woman he didn't know, and he was willing to, it speaks to me. I don't even know if I can call it a lapse in judgment. I think he was so lonely and just maybe discouraged and ready to throw his hands up. To me, this is the action of a very extreme situation in his soul, in his nefesh. There was something going on.
Yeah, and those things
you're already getting onto the next topic, and I gotta get going here.
We gotta go.
Yep. Well, thank you so much.
By all means, schedule another time, and looking forward.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Good talking to you.
Yaya kapona para rekalawala.